Jan Burks has an undergraduate degree from the University of Kentucky's College of Education and also holds a master's degree in counseling from Eastern Kentucky University. She has been with the UK College of Agriculture Cooperative Extension Service for 18 years. She currently holds the position of 4-H Youth Development Specialist for Science, Engineering, Technology, and Math, the STEM areas. Jan holds positions on several STEM leadership teams and boards at UK and statewide as well as nationally. Previously, she served with the UK College of Dentistry as its registrar, and Jan has been with the Staff Senate for 7 years, 5 of those years in officer positions, 4 years as treasurer, and currently as chair of the Staff Senate. Jan is married with 3 daughters and 7 grandchildren. Please welcome Jan Burks.
Good morning, and thank you all so much for coming today. It's a privilege to be here today to introduce our preferred candidate, Dr. Capillaro. But before I do that, I want to go through a few little housekeeping things. One, I want to recognize our Board of Trustees members that are here and appreciate them coming this morning. Sheila Brothers, our staff representative, Keith Gatton, Bill Gatton, Pam May, Joe Peak, and our committee, search committee representatives, Bart Miller for the staff, Myra Tobin, and Lee Meyer. Thank you all for your service to all of us. Dr. Capillaro is currently the provost of the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and is a former dean of the UAB School of Public Health, where he holds the rank of professor. As provost, Dr. Capillaro works closely with administrators, faculty, staff, and students to advance new initiatives in innovative teaching, learning, and research. Service in accordance to the university's strategic plan there. The plan's goals, objectives include systems of accountability measured by the university and school scorecards, and budget systems aligned in productivity and quality. He has received numerous awards, which I will not list for you.
Good.
But I will tell you, I thought this was very interesting and appropriate. Dr. Capillaro is active in local volunteer organizations, having served in leadership roles in the boards of the YMCA, Red Cross, the Ronald McDonald House, and the Temple Emmanuel. He has served 8 years on the Mountain Brook City School Board of Education. He is currently the past president of the Kiwanis Club in Birmingham. He's also a member of the A+ College Ready Management Board that oversees statewide initiatives to increase advanced placement success through high school students. In 2008, he received the National Conference of Community and Justice Brotherhood Sisterhood Award for Outstanding Community Service. Thank you. This morning, I'd like to just tell you how this is going to work. We have microphones down front, and if you will limit your question to 3 minutes, and then also we're going to have, you're going to open with,
okay.
And so you're on.
Jan, thank you very much. It is a delight and pleasure and honor for me to be here today. I have hopefully earned the respect of your Board of Trustees and Search Committee, and I hope through this day and for me days to come that I earn your respect. I told the group this morning a story that I'm going to repeat again because it's the question I ask myself every morning, and it started with me some 10 years ago. My daughter was 13 years old, and she asked me to watch the movie Gladiators, which I reluctantly did, and it turned out to be a great movie. And at the end, I was touched by this movie, and I said to her, "What's the most important line you heard in that movie?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know." And I said, "No, as a parent, what do you think the most important line would be?" And she said to me, "On my command, unleash hell." And so that's a... We missed our bonding moment there. And I said to her, no, to me is that time Russell Crowe turns to people and he says, "Why are we here?" Sort of, why are we here? And that's what I ask myself every day in the work that I do. And my answer is because I'm here to serve students first, I'll tell you that, and our faculty and our staff. It takes an incredible team to prepare this next generation of learners and leaders. And I know when I read about some of your students, you're doing a grand job. I'm here because I believe in you. Up until last week, everything I knew about you, I had read, either over the internet or through printed materials. And it was powerful to me, so much that it made me think of dislodging myself from a community and university where I've lived for 35 years. My wife and I, before we took this step, decided we'd look firsthand at your campus and city. So without anybody's knowledge, we flew in last Tuesday to Louisville, drove over, and walked your campus for about 6 hours. And we could feel the vibrancy and the commitment from everybody we met. And everybody has a deep affinity, loyalty to this campus. And I recognize it is a precious legacy that I must work with you to uphold. I visited a variety of spots. I won't mention every one of them, where I just ask students how it's going. A profound moment for us is when we visited the Young Library and heard those students who were collectively learning in groups, especially. It's the way they're going to have to work in the future, and to watch the way they exchanged information and taught one another and worked together was powerful. The building in and of itself, my wife called a sanctuary of learning. It makes a profound statement when one of the most compelling buildings on your campus is a library. So that was a touching moment for us. It was also great as we toured the areas to realize all the multi-facets of this university. I said one of the reasons I'm here is because there are few flagship universities who also have an academic health center. And that's a richness that's so important in this day and age. And I told this story at a press conference that I really didn't know I was going to be participating in until about an hour before. Yesterday, when I was introduced. One of the greatest moments for us is when we went to the Stuckert Center. We had to get there before it closed. We were rushing around campus. And a young woman by the name of Clara met us when we walked in. She wanted to introduce me to the director, who I met here just a little while ago. I said, oh, no, I don't need to see the director. But she told me about, I said, what do you do? And she started telling me about the wonderful internship she was working on. She told me that Disney had been to town and their track record of placing interns. And she was just thrilled about her work and committed to these students. And that story is something I sensed as I walked through your campus. That night, my wife and I walked around the city and felt energized. We went into a restaurant and had a great meal at A La Lucy's, and we asked people, what do you think about Lexington? And everybody said the same thing. Universally, they loved it. It was the place that they wanted to live out their lives. It was God's country. There were great schools, there were great people, and to be a part of a great university. So that's why I am here, and my wife is here. Our daughter drove all night from Birmingham. She got here about 3 in the morning, and she's going to be walking around the campus this afternoon. She's a graduate student at UAB. And we are just extremely gratified and with great humility stand before you today to answer your questions. I know you have lots of hopes and dreams, and one of the things that attracted me most to your campus is you're big dreamers. I come from a university that started on 15 city blocks and today stretches over 85 city blocks. Our early president, and I'm not that old, so I knew him. Our early president, our first president, he came to be dean of the dental school in Birmingham, and like all our presidents, they dreamed of a comprehensive university, which we have today. But he used to say, we do Birmingham a great disservice if we dream too little dreams. And most people thought he was crazy when he started talking about the things we were going to do. But in my lifetime, I saw it come true. So you have lofty dreams. You have great aspirations. And we may not all get there next week or next year, but the important thing is to remain committed to those dreams. I know you're the backbone of a university. You get so much work done. I think when I learned that Dr. Todd had formed this group, when I learned that there's staff representation on the Board of Trustees, that says a lot to me about your Board of Trustees. That was my first interaction, really, was with the search committee and the Board of Trustees. I came home and told my wife, you just feel it in your gut. These are really good people. And my experiences since then have so reinforced it. So I'm pleased to be here, and I look forward to answering any and all of your questions. I know I won't be able to answer every one of them, but with your help in the future, I'll be better at answering them. So thank you.
Thank you. And if you're our next president, maybe I'll do better on your name next time. So
That's all right. My cousin is on the faculty here, and I called her last night, and she said, well, now that you're here, maybe folks will do a better job in pronouncing my name. So,
oh, good. I'm not the only one then.
Don't worry about it.
So as you come down to the microphones, I'll open with a question. So if you all, just feel free to come down. Staff costs are often viewed as just a support expense at the university in contrast to faculty costs, being quality dependent and therefore competitive. How important do you feel hiring and retaining talented staff for empowering faculty to deliver high-quality education to students is?
Very important. I said earlier, talent begets talent. And I think when you attract great people, they attract great teams. And I think teams must include faculty, staff, students, community leaders. You got to assemble wonderful teams. And hardly any of us can do these jobs independently. So that's very important to me.
We have questions from the audience?
Sure.
Yes, hi. Dr. Michael Sheets from Center for Computational Sciences. What is your understanding and perception of the university's top 20 plan, and how would you either modify it or progress it toward the future?
Sure. Well, I think I said earlier that one of the things that attracted me to your university was that plan. It was lofty. The dreams are tremendous. And to also recognize that there's steep competition out there because we're trying to do some of these same things as well. And I know others are. And I also know that there are a lot of people that are not going to stop doing what they're doing. But anyway, you made a commitment to it, and that's important. I think that any time you're trying to reach a goal, it's important to pause and sort of understand what may be a better avenue to get there, what may be the best measure in the context that you find yourself. I think your plan was birthed in 2005. We've had an economy that's crashed since that time. We see demographic changes amongst our student populations. We see that research and development funds, which are important to a university, are going to be stable or flat for a good period of time. So we need to maybe step back and say, how would we best get there? What may be some other measures we want to look at? And that's a dialogue I look forward to having, but I think you should stick to big dreams.
I
was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about any experience you've had with land-grant universities and how you see the mission of the university in that respect, particularly when it comes to cooperative extension and maybe the College of Agriculture?
Sure.
Thank you.
I grew up in Alabama. I have Auburn University and the University of Alabama. I attended the University of Alabama. Auburn was about 35 minutes from my home, and I visited there frequently, and I certainly know their extensive network across their state and what it means for a community. I said to Dr. Meyer that one of the first things I wanted to do is visit these because it's important to me to see the work firsthand, know what it can mean to a community to have expertise and advice from a university. Our university is certainly not a land-grant university, but our commitment to working with and in community is steep. It's a tradition that I come from. And, it's important for universities to be relevant every day. And to do so, you've got to be out there in community. Amy, right?
Hi, Dr. Cavaluto. I'd like to welcome you to Lexington.
Thank you.
I'm a part-time instructor in classics, Latin and Greek, and I guess we call that staff. It's a contractual, each semester a contract, so that's why I'm here rather than faculty. I'd like to ask you about your experience in learning foreign languages. Maybe I should call them second or third languages. Once you learn it, it's not so foreign. And what your wishes and plans are for the students at Kentucky. And I think I got lucky here because I think I'm looking at a Greek family name, a man with a Greek family name, and a real history of charitable engagement with a community that may have a bit of Hebrew. And I would like to ask you to focus in particular on the ancient languages, Greek and Hebrew, and do they have a place in a modern university?
Well, before I answer that question, why don't you answer that question for me? I'm serious. Tell me about the way you see it here.
Well, the reason I'm asking you is because as president of the university, you really have the first responsibility for the life of the mind here on this campus. And I think for these ancient languages, there's a particular administrative challenge because although they may have low enrollment, they're vitally important to the students who take them. So I thought as an administrator, you might have some insight and some background with speaking and reading and learning
Sure.
and getting involved in the traditions of others.
Well, I appreciate your question, and to elaborate on my personal experience, no, I'm not conversant in Hebrew or Greek. I can read Hebrew, I cannot translate it. That's sort of part of my faith tradition. I wish I could. I think those languages are so important to people who try to unlock the mysteries of our past and try to find meaning that resonates with us today. I think, and I'm excited with this new generation, I hope I'm seeing a renewed interest in foreign languages. And I think that's extremely healthy, especially in the global society that we find ourselves today. I spent a couple of weekends ago calling the National Merit Finalists at our university to convince them to come to our campus. And one student said, well, I'm considering another university, and they don't offer Scandinavian, but that's what I want to learn, and do you do that? And I got on the phone, and I couldn't find anybody that did that. But we'll work on ways to do it. Could we find somebody locally who could serve as a tutor and so forth? You try in innovative ways to meet these new interests. So I'm deeply committed to this. I don't know enough about the context of and the situation here to make any specific comments beyond that. By the way, my family spoke Ladino, which is a lost language. It's a combination of, I think there are only about 100,000 people in the world that speak it today. My grandparents spoke this. It's all they really spoke. They had broken English, is what I remember as a child, but it's a mixture of Spanish, Arabic, and Hebrew. That's sort of what they speak.
Thank you. Ann?
My name's Anne Livingstone, and I'm one of the founders of the Staff Senate. You actually, so as
Congratulations.
thank you. One of the long-term staff here. You actually would be my 5th president.
Woo, you're rough on them. You've already been through 5?
You're number 5.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And my interests, because I'm the Staff Senate founder, are very much staff economics. And under the various presidents we've had across-the-board increases, we've had cost of living increases, we've had merit raises. More and more of our staff are no longer earn enough to qualify for Habitat for Humanity housing. And increasing numbers of them are going to Community Action Council for assistance with their winter programs for heating. I would like to know, sir, where you would put this very serious issue in your priorities. What would your ideas be on what we could do, and how would you help tackle it?
First of all, tell me about the Community Action Council. Tell me what the Community
Well,
Action
that's a
Council-
grant, a national grant. The local Community Action Council people provide heating assistance for the poor throughout Lexington, and they actually keep a record of who people work for when they go and ask for help.
Do you have any kind of emergency assistance fund?
I'm sorry.
An emergency assistance fund on campus for staff or faculty and students?
We are currently actually about to launch the crisis program, whereby staff can donate money every month so that we will have an assistance program for ourselves. We already have the shared leave pool, whereby staff can donate
Sure.
leave to the pool so that people who are very ill or have a very seriously ill family member can, if they don't have enough leave, take time off and still get paid. So we are doing something for ourselves, but the pay issue is getting very serious.
Right. I will tell you what my experience is in the past. We periodically engage expertise to make sure we are paying a competitive wage. And we do that in the context of our environment in Birmingham or where people may live. And my experience has been our governance structure at our university and throughout our system is we have merit increases. We really haven't done. We don't do, there are certain categories of workers for which we do have cost of living increases. They have sort of a step program and all. And those, I think, for instance, our carpenters are in those kinds of programs, some of our police force. But that is to sort of match what goes on in those particular markets where we're trying to remain competitive. So we periodically assess those and move the scales and move the minimum payments in those fields. That's how we have tried to address it.
They try and do something similar here, but the problem is that being the biggest employer, if we pay low, we're looking at ourselves, which doesn't really help much in the feedback, and we do have an increasing number of illegal workers being paid less than minimum wage, which doesn't help the figures either. So
Thank you.
I thank you for your attention to that.
Hello, I'm Debbie Murray. I direct the Health Education Through Extension Leadership Program, which we think is an innovative collaboration between the College of Public Health and the other academic colleges and the Cooperative Extension Service. Being responsible for an outreach program primarily dealing with some of our worst health issues, and as you're probably aware, we're at the bottom of the list or top of the list, depending on how you look at it, in some of the worst health statistics in the country. So how would you extend the outreach of the university to deal with some of these complex problems that are within the mission of a land-grant institution?
Well, before you go, tell me about some successes.
Well, one of the things that we've been able to do is to utilize the Cooperative Extension Service in all of the counties. We've reached a tremendous number of people, over 3 million people a year with health information. We've also been very instrumental in increasing the number of steps of participants in some of our physical activity programs. We have a very engaged program through our food stamp nutrition education program with public schools throughout the state, where we leverage food stamp dollars to do educational programs. Our 4-H program has a very active Health Rocks program throughout the state, but still our health problems persist, and we know it's a long-term problem. But in the with cutbacks, budget cutbacks at the federal level, you know, a lot of our programs are looking at $0 because of federal earmarks being zeroed out for the next 2 years.
Sure.
And so this is a challenge for those of us who are working to extend the expertise of the university to the community. So I thought you might have some creative ways of dealing with those kinds of issues.
I'll tell you the things that I've observed that work. The first principle one has to follow is it has to be the community's problem and not the university's problem. The community has to identify that this is their issue that they want to work on. You can't do to or for any community. You have to do with the community. So the extent to which, you know, you listen and build those partnerships, I find that you're successful. I think when some of these problems are so overwhelming that the answer is typically something collective within the community that tries to turn all of those levers that are influencing these. And you won't see the results overnight, but you should look for the things you think you're making a difference on and measure those. Some of the things that have worked for us and that gratify me, we partner with a variety of groups to do things, and we do it in the poorest communities in our state. Some of the funding agencies that we've traditionally relied on have this same expectation of us too. A National Cancer Center award to designate us as a comprehensive cancer center. In their last review several years ago, asked us to step up the game in terms of this kind of outreach. So because of that, we have terrific programs run by community health advisors. These are people in the community. They're the ones out there making sure that women are screened or have their mammographies, making sure they get into care and referred. So the communities own these projects. They are their projects, not necessarily our projects.
Yeah, and UK is partnering with the University of Alabama at Birmingham on the REACH project.
Oh, terrific.
So we do have that collaboration with UAB.
Well, those kinds of things are terribly important. And you can't get overwhelmed by them. You've got to stay with it. Thanks for the work you do.
Welcome to Kentucky, Dr. Capolito. And I have two questions. The first one is, do you believe in shared governance with the staff and faculty senates?
Yes.
Could you elaborate, sir?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to get input on a variety of matters that one addresses. At the end of the day, somebody's got to make a decision. And that usually rests at a variety of places in a university. You like to get feedback, you like to have input, you like to have a staff senate like you have to have a forum for that kind of information and advice.
Thank you. My second question is, kind of follows up on this. Will you respect the freedom of speech by staff and faculty senates in regards to representing their constituents?
Yes?
Could you elaborate, please?
Universities are beautiful places, and at the cornerstone of those wonderful entities that we should all be grateful we get to occupy is this free speech. So I think we all have an obligation, though, to be civil and respectful of one another. That's important to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Over here?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. As a fellow Alabamian, welcome to
Yes, where are you
Kentucky.
from?
I went to the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa and was born in Mobile.
Oh, good. And your name, please?
Matthew Defendahl. I am the director of the First Scholars Program here at UK. It works with first-generation students. So the first part of my question is about that hat. What role does UK play in recruiting and supporting first-generation college students? And the second question I have is my hat as chair of the UK Advising Network. What role do academic advisors play in student success and retention here at UK? And how have you supported advisors in your previous roles?
First of all, first generation students. I'd heard that about your campus. My campus is similar and probably has even more first-generation students. When I look at your demographic data and the percentage of college graduates that live in your state who are in adulthood, you can well imagine that you're going to have a high number of first-generation students. That weaves into your question about advising. I think when you're a first-generation student, you haven't lived in, at least your family or support network hasn't had this experience that you're going to have for the first time. And on campus, to navigate the challenges that one may have, that advisor needs to be, on call in the first line of help. So I think they're critically important. Advising on our campus. I had a great week last week. I think our advisors are doing a terrific job. But we came together and said we've got to do a better job. We had an advising task force that presented me a variety of sort of recommendations of how we could improve. But I'm most proud that our advisors to a person have a passion for this that I'd stack up against anybody, and that's critical. That's been my engagement.
Thank you.
Over here on the left side?
Hi, welcome to Kentucky.
Thank you.
My question is about academics and business. As state and local budgets have tightened over the past few years, there has been a greater pressure on the university to increase efficiency in its practices and demonstrate a return on taxpayer investment and tuition dollars. However, this has led to some tension between those who seek to incorporate more business practices from the business world into university life and those who feel that the university as a nonprofit academic organization should not be run like a corporation. I was wondering if you could speak on what your opinion on this issue is and how you would seek to balance the different and sometimes competing approaches that corporations and academic institutions take towards their operating practices.
Thank you. So regardless of whether you're a for-profit or a not-for-profit, you still have some fundamentals that you have to address. You've got to be able to serve your clients and your customers, and they need to come first. You have to do it efficiently because redundancy is not healthy to serve those clients or customers or students, whoever you have. So I think that it's always important to look how you do things and how you can better do them. And that's part of free speech too, having an open dialogue of how we best serve people. So, I do take a look at how we do things. At my university, it's been a priority. I reorganized my office, and in fact, I have 2 vice provosts. One is for administration and quality improvement, because I wanted to focus more on that. It's not healthy when your customers, our staff who may need questions asked about HR issues, or our faculty who need an answer on grants and contracts and so forth, have to individually sort of connect with all kinds of offices. We have purchased a new software package that we're integrating over the next few years so that the redundancy that we had in preparing a grant, reviewing a grant, submitting a grant, our reviews for conflict of interest and so forth can be streamlined. We have a fully online system that people request permission to consult, for instance. That used to be a paper form. It required about 4 or 5 signatures. People usually had to get those signed on a moment's notice, so people would manually carry those around to offices. We don't need to be doing that kind of thing in a digital age. So you need to be looking at ways to better serve your fellow employees and your students. I think it's a healthy discussion to have. And I don't think universities are business. They're sort of business-like, though. I mean, some of the practices that you learn and how you operate and the technology you may borrow from one another. I think that we have contributions to make in terms of the way businesses operate. So it's a bi-directional kind of enterprise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Parker. Welcome to Kentucky. I've worked for Kentucky about 10 years, but I've lived next to Kentucky about 15 years as a neighbor of Kentucky. And I'm very happy as a staff member. I love working here, but at times I've been disappointed in the university when it comes to their neighborhood relationships. It seems to be the university's tendency has been to push undesired infrastructure to the edge of the university, such as parking garages and power lines, and or their alcohol policy, engaging drinking in students. And I think that's had a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. I guess my question is, do you believe in order for Kentucky, University of Kentucky to be a top 20 university, has to have a top 20 neighborhoods surrounding it? And how do you think the university should facilitate that?
I think later today I get to meet the mayor, and I'm going to ask him that question for you. So maybe he'll have an answer. I just don't know enough to fully answer that question. This is the way I've felt about our university. We have some of the same tensions, and you have to be respectful. You are in and of this city and state, and you got to work these things out. We're looking at a new master plan, and to better green our campus, to put more, bike lanes and come up with a reliable shuttle that doesn't get bogged down in traffic. One of the things we've learned is we do need to put some of our parking on the periphery. You start putting it in the center, people congregate and you just clog up your systems. But you have to be comprehensive in how you build something. If you're missing one piece of that, it doesn't work or flow. So I don't know enough about what's happened here, but I think those are important issues.
This is a follow-up. Do you agree that the edges of the campus are just as important as the center of the campus as far as having continuity with the rest of the community?
Please elaborate on that. I'm not certain.
Well, you can have a very nice interior with nice buildings, but on the exterior have kind of this no man's land with the parking and parking garages, and it creates sort of a gap between the campus and the rest of the community, and it sort of it tends to discourage walking and biking, and it also sometimes leads to these neighborhoods going down because they have infrastructure that's undesirable to live next to, and therefore you don't sometimes have quite the quality of neighborhoods surrounding it that perhaps staff or other people would want to live in.
Again, I don't know enough to sort of comment on the specifics of what I think you're addressing, but I think the university benefits from wonderful neighborhoods, and I think the neighborhoods benefit from a wonderful university that respects what they're trying to do. That's the way I feel about it.
Welcome to Kentucky.
Thank you.
I was born in Alabama myself, but I've been here all my life. And one of the questions asked, and it alluded to the fact that we're interacting with local governments, and being a son of a lifelong politician, Kentucky's politics is unique. What is your experience?
That's what everybody says about their state.
Yeah, well,
we got some we could match.
yeah, and it's true, and it's every state has its own culture as far as politics,
Right.
and I'd say Alabama does. What is your experience dealing with those legislators and trying to secure funding? And in this case, Kentucky, University of Kentucky, is a land grant university, our flagship, and it's a target a lot of time for politicians. So how do you feel that you can defend the university?
Target in what way?
Well, you're looking at, first of all, sometimes you look at education in general in Kentucky. It's notorious for politicians to look to cut and slash those funds. That's usually their first key they go after to try to free up some funding. My father's he's been in education, he's a teacher. He was also a politician, worked for the federal government. He's seen that working with several programs that he helped develop for East Kentucky, that's where I'm from. And that is quintessential their first target. So sometimes you have to defend that position. So I was just wondering if you had experience in that.
Well, let me say I think a university president has to serve all the people and all the elected officials, regardless of what party they're in, and getting embroiled in partisan politics, I don't think it's a healthy thing to do when you're trying to advance your university. And I think, for me, what's always worked is when I have a great story to tell about the difference we're making in communities, locally and throughout our state. And I have the richest set of stories I get from the work we do. And there's something I've seen universal in elected folks. They seem to find sort of some resonance in those kinds of stories when you're making a difference. But you really got to be making a difference nowadays, because you got to respect them, that they're in an economy that is, taking its blows, and they have a variety of priorities, and they have constrained resources. We just have to articulate, the best story, the most compelling story about our work. And I am familiar, in our state, the K-12 system has a very active association that's been a political force for 25 years. This last year, for the first time since the days of George Wallace, we have both sides of the legislature and the governor's office are all one party. So that sets up a whole different set of dynamics that one has to be prepared to respond to. But there's some fundamentals there. You're telling the truth about the great work you're doing. And I find that, that truth has the greatest impact when you're dealing with people who are elected by their fellow citizens.
Thank you.
Over here. Hello, Twanda Lewis. I'm Director of Development for the College of Pharmacy. I wanted to ask you, as you alluded to earlier, our fundraising needs are important for the university, and we're very fortunate to have a lot of generous donors and friends. What role do you see yourself playing in our development and fundraising efforts, and what percentage of your time are you willing to devote to that?
Sure. Well, I think one of the most important responsibilities of a president is to be able to articulate to those who want to make a difference ways in which they can invest in a university and feel good about it. And the way I can best do that is making sure that the work that all of you do is worthy of those investments. I did look at your endowment and your success with your most recent campaign, and it's pretty powerful. Someone asked me earlier about the Blue Nation. I think the Blue Nation, when it expresses itself with that kind of generosity, says a lot. So I get to work and build on the shoulders of many people that came before me. I learned as a dean that I planted seeds that people got to see blossom years later. I once had a dean when I was at Harvard tell me that he got to close on gifts that somebody else started 20 years ago. So we're all in this together for the long haul, and it's very, very important, especially in these economic times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're back. I'm back. But this time I'm wearing my office hat.
You don't keep notches in your belt or anything. President number 5. And,
this time I'm talking on behalf of my department. I work for the Office of International Affairs. And
where are you from originally?
South coast of England. But I've been here 32 years. I haven't picked up the accent yet.
Well, don't let go of yours. It's beautiful.
Thank you. We have a great deal of effort in our office. We have an international recruiter who spends a lot of time on the road, and our international office is growing. So we're very interested in international affairs. There's a great effort to make the University of Kentucky more diverse in international. And we're also putting great efforts into education abroad, sending as many students as we can. Have you had any experience of this? What is your view on internationalization and increasing numbers of students getting world experience, preparing them for the workplace, and getting internationals here to help us understand more of the rest of the world?
I'll share with you a personal story. First of all, my daughter, when she was in the 10th grade, walked into the bedroom of at our home and looked at my wife and me and said, "I've decided where I want to spend my first semester next year." And I said, "Where?" She said, "In a high school in Israel." And this is when the Intifada was still going on and on. I said, "What are you talking about?" Well, she talked us into it. And she had that experience. We visited her there. In college, she again found a wonderful opportunity where she spent 10 days in Geneva at the World Health Organization. She lived with families for 6 weeks in China, 6 weeks in India, and 6 weeks in South Africa. It forever changed her life.
Mm-hmm. It does, yes.
She has a view of the world that maybe I'll never have, but I'm gratified to know that she will have it. Okay?
So you would encourage our efforts?
I encourage that. And one of the things we did at our campus, what's so difficult about these kinds of programs, when you have first-generation students,
yes,
when you have so many students that work part-time, that don't have the resources. We put a few $100,000 into need scholarships to make these available. We grew them several-fold, but it's still not at the level that you'd want.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Well, while we're waiting for others to maybe come down, I have some questions that were sent in by staff, and one of them is about communication, about top-down communication. I'm combining several of them. So basically, the question is, how can administration communicate with our employees? We have some on campus, and we have employees in all 120 counties. And how can we communicate better, and whether the president would make himself available to visit with staff on an ongoing and regular basis?
Well, you tell me how you communicate now first.
Electronically, usually.
Yeah.
And our president in the past has taken on a bus tour and visited throughout the state. So right now we get blast every day about what's going on in our campus. But our coworkers out in the field and off campus, that's healthcare and agriculture,
right,
often feel left out and not connected to our main campus.
One of the things that I look forward to is living on a campus, because I think it's going to afford me the opportunity, just as I walk the sidewalks back and forth to my office, to see people firsthand. And that's a rich experience for me. But in these days of social networking and all, you got to go beyond that, and you got to take advantage of these kinds of means of communication. So I'm sure I'll use Twitter, and I'll try to do those kinds of things. I'll probably get somebody who is under the age of 25 to, guide me through it. I follow some tweets, I do that, but I think it is one way you have to do it. You got to use a variety of means to try to connect to people. I do look forward to traveling the state. I know the richness of your history, and I know it will fill me with sort of energy and motivate me. So I look forward to that, and maybe we can do some of those things together.
Thank you. We have one more question.
Hi, I'm glad to hear you talking about communication, and especially since you'll be our nearest neighbor if you're living right on campus there.
Okay.
I felt sorry for Mark Barker here, representing all the neighbors in one voice, and I thought possibly I could give you a little bit more context in history, so you could say a little more about how you envision the university working together with the neighboring communities. I would say, first and foremost, students want economical housing, and that's probably not a secret to you. And they don't feel that they're finding it on campus. So there's a question whether you would support or wish to get the legislature to cough up for some housing on campus. There was a recent case that went through downtown processes where a sorority wanted to build on campus, couldn't find a place, so they wanted to take 3 lots together and tear down some historic houses and build a place nearby. They said, well, we can't find a spot on campus. And that was difficult for the neighbors. It was a very different building and character. So that'd be another example of the kinds of things we're seeing. About a year ago, there was a committee of the local town council, a very active and hardworking committee that met for months and months with neighborhood groups and representatives. And they're working to put town legislation together, ordinances that can better help landlord-tenant relations in the community. And what they were chiefly addressing was the neighboring, the houses that are turned into group homes where some neighbors would prefer to see them family occupied. There's a problem with stability. People get anxious that their property value goes down. And then there's, you get to the point you almost wish we would lose the ball game so there won't be a couch burning. And we don't want to be wishing to lose the ball game. But I would say communication from the university. What's your idea of the university's role in communicating and working together with the town council in crafting ordinances? University also has a state police force. And there are a lot of questions about what's the university's responsibility in policing and what student codes of conduct are pertinent, that kind of thing.
I think we may have to spend another hour for me to answer those, but you have lots of questions. So first of all, about student housing. If you visit college campuses today, you got to be impressed with what people are starting to do with student villages and living and learning enterprises. And the success rates of students who participate in those activities in terms of progress and graduation, I think is compelling. So I think that has to remain a priority. As I walked through your campus, I kind of felt the need to talk about those things more often. I kind of envision new villages and ways that students can congregate with respect to the land that you have and how you use it. So I'll be excited to engage in those conversations. You know, back to how we deal with the city. I mean, we've got to be respectful of one another, and it starts sort of block by block and neighbor by neighbor. So I don't know the means you have here in our community. We have neighborhood associations we deal with. Not every issue jumps up to the city council, for instance. We try to work it out in that way. We have now introduced a universal communication system for our university police force and our city police force, and they work hand in hand, and that's, you know, again, when you get 2 leaders of your security teams that communicate with one another, respect what they're doing, call on each other when they need to. When it happens at that level, I think it's important. So those are the things that I think are critical. Yes, sir?
I'm back too. There's always been some...
Excuse me, how many presidents have you gone through?
About 4.
4?
There's always been somewhat of an artificial barrier between the medical school and main campus, particularly in research. We've got a division between NIH funds and NSF funds, and NIH funds have always seemed to be a much more important component of research at the university. That's starting to break down the artificial barrier between the medical school and main campus research is beginning to break down. But how do you perceive being able to integrate the medical research and the main campus research more in order to progress toward top 20 status?
You know, one of the place where I see the most progress in integration across universities has usually been because people come together in response to initiatives of the funding agencies that call for interdisciplinary activities. We had on our campus a couple of weeks ago a symposium on neurodevelopmental disorders. And as I welcomed everybody to that and looked over the program and stayed an hour or so, you realize that you have people across campus who work from the cellular to the community level. The person who introduced the program that day said she'd done a word search across all the funding agencies, and she listed 4 words that were most frequently used, and the top one was interdisciplinary, and then multidisciplinary, then collaboration and partnerships and so forth. So I think these funding agencies are expecting it. When our Cancer Center grant had to be renewed, it had to have a community outreach program that was effective. And so that bridged the bench scientists to those who can work effectively in community. You have a Center for Clinical Translational Research. We have one. Ours is federally funded. I learned you had a great score. Those require those kinds of interactions. So I'm quite encouraged. You know, I have great faith in people finding wonderful partners to work with. I know as a provost I could never contrive partnerships, but I like to set up means by where people can more freely do those kinds of things.
You only have about 2 minutes before I know you have to get to your next meeting, so if you could, this will be our last question, if it can be quickly.
Hi, I have, I guess, a comment, and if you would like to respond, that would be great. My name is Casa Heron, and I'm brand new to the university as of today. I'll be working in the community engagement office.
I hope to be too.
I will be working in the Office of Community Engagement and hope to be integral in addressing some of those neighborhood and community issues that folks have talked about. I'm from Richmond, Kentucky, which is part of here, Central Kentucky, and grew up on UK basketball, but spent my last maybe 12, 13 years in Louisville. I went to undergrad there, and I'm a planner in community development, and have really started to do a lot of work in local food systems. And what I've noticed is that there's Louisville, and there's Lexington, and there's the rest of the state. And I know that there's a tremendous opportunity for the 2 cities, major cities in our state, to work cooperatively together and learn from each other, and that includes the universities. And so should you be the next president here, I hope that you would provide some support in that arena.
Sounds like good advice. Thank you.
Can we thank Dr. Capilouto?
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Just I want to thank all of you for taking time out of what I know are busy schedules to share your thoughts and questions. It's been a wonderful dialogue for me, and I hope I have the honor of continuing our discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.